Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Here we are going to talk about the K-means clustering, which is basically a type of clustering technique. So today we will explore about K-means clustering. So let's move ahead. What is K-means clustering? So here what we are going to do, as you know, that clustering is a technique which is handling the unlabeled data set. So when we are providing the unlabeled data set to our model, it will create different clusters. So those clusters will contain similar kind of objects. So there will be homogeneity within the clusters. So within one cluster, there will be same kind of data points. Okay. So K-means clustering is used to group the unlabeled dataset into different clusters and subsets. Okay. Now, it group objects such that objects in a cluster will be closer or more similar to the centroid of the cluster. So in this K-means clustering algorithm uses the centroid technique where we are finding out the distance of the data points from the centroids, and then it is making out the clusters. Okay, as I already told you, it's a centroid based algorithm where it is finding out the distance among the data points from the centroid. Okay, so let's move ahead. Or here, what actually we are doing in the K-mean clustering. So here we are finding out the distance to assign a point to a cluster. Each cluster is associated with a centroid. Okay, so reassignment of instances to clusters is based on distance to the current centroids. What is happening actually? There we will find out the current distance of the data points from the centroids. If let's say that there are 2 or 3 centroids in the data space and there are a lot of data points, so which data point is lying near to which centroid? That data point will be in that cluster only. So we are finding out the data points which are belonging to which clusters. So we will have a look ahead on that how it's going to work. Next point is its main objective of the K-means algorithm is to minimize the sum of distances between the points and their respective cluster centroid. So have a look on this picture. It's an unlabeled data. We are having the data points in the data space. By using the K-means clustering, we are trying to convert them into 3 different clusters. Here you can see that there are 3 kind of clusters. One is green cluster, one is red cluster, and the third one is the blue cluster. How it's working? Let's move and see. Okay, so before that, have a look on this example that they are using the clustering technique. How? So a pizza chain wants to open its delivery centers across a city. Okay, so but what do you think would be the possible challenges? So they need to analyze the areas from where the pizza is being ordered frequently, and then they will figure out the locations for the pizza stores in order to keep the distance between the store and delivery points. It should be minimum. Okay, and how many pizza stores has to be opened to cover delivery in that area. So those all things they will keep in the mind, and then they will decide like where they can locate their pizza stores. So resolving these challenges includes a lot of analysis and mathematics. So clustering can provide a meaningful and easy method of sorting out such real life challenges. So that was one example of clustering. Let's move ahead and see this K-means algorithm. So first, what we will do in this K-means algorithm. So here we will start with the first group of randomly selected centroids. First of all, when you are having data points in the data space, we are randomly going to select the centroids, which are used as the beginning points for every cluster, from where we are beginning this K-mean algorithm. Then assign each data point to its closest K center. After that, it will find out the closest data point to the centroids, and then that data point will be in that cluster. Third point, it performs iterative calculations to optimize the position of the centroid. This process we are repeating multiple times to finally reach out to the clusters where there is no changes happening in the clusters. And the last one, algorithm stops when the centroids have stabilized or the defined number of iterations has been achieved. Means where we are going to stop this algorithm. Maybe we have predefined the number of iterations, like after this number of iterations, our algorithm must stop. Or there is no change is happening in the centroid position or the data points which are lying in that cluster. Okay, so there are some steps which are there in the working of k-means algorithm. So step 0. So first of all, we need to specify the number of clusters which are going to be generated. Okay, so using this k-mean, we have to predefine the number of clusters. Then randomly select k data points and assign each data point to a cluster. So randomly we will select the centroids. Okay, and then it will compute the cluster centroids. After first iteration, it will find out the another centroids of those clusters, and then this process will be in the repetition until we find out the final output. Now keep iterating until we find optimal centroid. Okay, so the sum of square distance between data points and the centroid would be computed. Then assign each data point to the cluster that is closer than other cluster. So each data point will be assigned to that cluster which is most closer to that data point. And the third point, compute the centroid for the clusters by taking the average of all data points of that cluster. And then we will keep this process in repetition. Okay. So let's have a look on this example. So let's say step 1, choose a number of clusters. So let's say that we are choosing 2 clusters, class A and class B. So as I told you in the k-mean, we have to predefine the number of the clusters. Next, we will randomly choose centroids. As you can see in this picture, we are having the data points. We have already predefined there would be 2 clusters. And now we are randomly choosing the centroids. So you can say there are 2 centroids, C1 and C2. Now we will see that the data point which is lying near to that centroid. So here we can see there are 3 points which are lying near to this C1. Okay, and this point also, this data point also lying near to this centroid. So this will make one cluster, and these 2 data points are lying near to this centroid, that is C2, and it will make another cluster. Let's move ahead and see. There has been created 2 clusters. One is this red one and another is this green one. Okay, now what will happen? It will again compute the centroids of newly formed clusters. Before, we are having C1 and C2 as centroids, but now we are having these, like this is the centroid and this is the centroid for this green one. Now we will find out the nearest data points to this centroid, and now it will look like this. I show you the previous picture. See, this red point is lying near to this green one centroid, not to the red one. So that's why this point has been added to this cluster. Okay, so see, now in the red cluster, before we were having 5 data points, now we are having 4 data points because one data point was lying near to the green cluster. Okay, so steps of computing the centroid and assigning all the points to the cluster based on their distance from the centroid is a single iteration. This iteration we will keep on repeating until we reach to a conclusion, or we have predefined the number of iterations, it will automatically get stopped. So there are some stopping criteria. Like centroids of newly formed clusters do not change, points remain in the same cluster, or maximum number of iterations are reached. Okay, so we will keep these things in our mind. Okay, let's take one more example, working of k-means algorithm. So this is a scatter diagram. So what is scatter diagram? Scatter diagram basically gives us a relationship among 2 variables. Okay, so we are applying this k-mean algorithm among this data. So what will happen? Now we will see, first of all, we will decide like how many clusters do we need. So we are taking out 2 clusters and then we are randomly choosing 2 centroids. So you can see this square box of blue color and the square box of red color. We have made 2 random centroids in the data. Now, which data points are lying to near to this red centroid and which data points are lying near to this blue centroid? Now, they will make out the clusters according to that. And now see, they have created 2 clusters. Okay. Now, after this, we will find out the centroids once again. Have a look. Now the centroid of this data point is this and the red cluster is this. Okay. Now we will find out the distance again from the centroid to the data points, and now after this you will see that this red one data point is lying near to this blue cluster and these blue data points are lying near to the red cluster, and after keeping repeating these iterations, we will finally reach to this result. So here you can see they have given us 2 different color clusters and they are having similarities within the clusters, but they are dissimilar with each other, means there is dissimilarity between the clusters. Okay, so that's all for today. That was we discussed today about the k-means algorithm and the working of the k-means algorithm. In the next class, we'll talk about some other topics. See you again. Okay, thank you guys.